WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have something from Glen Scotia. It was a limited edition, cask strength, seasonal release. It is 12 years old. It does have 54.7% ABV. It is non-chilled filtered, and it is natural color. Well done, Glen Scotia. Now, the price is between 69 and 79 euros over here in Germany. It was bottled on the 10th of October 2021, and then it's really weird what it was stored in. It says here, and I'm going to read the back of the bottle after I pour a tiny little bit. I'm going to pour a little bit in my glass here. It says here on the back. Now, two things are interesting about this thing. It says, bringing together a series of unpeated distillations from up to 2009. So this could actually be older. So what they did is they took 11-year-old stock and then gave it a 1-year-old finish, or 12-month finish. This seasonal spirit was matured in first fill bourbon casks and American oak hogsheads. Now, the question that I have, and I was at the distillery in May of 2022, my team and my group and I, plus also the people who are at Springbank that did their week working at Springbank, were all put together and we did a great tour with the distillery manager, Ian McAllister. Loved the tour, loved the distillery, loved what they're doing. But if you say it's a mix of first fill bourbon and then our American oak hogsheads, it can be one, or let's say 2 barrels of first fill and 300 barrels of hogsheads. We have no idea what percentage. I don't know if they're not allowed to say what percentage, but that could be very misleading, that statement. So especially with the first fill bourbon first and then the American hogshead second. And then they say exactly the same thing basically for the finish here. They go on to say here, after 11 years maturing, it has then been finished for 12 months in first fill Oloroso hogsheads and heavily charred American oak barrels before being married prior to bottling at cask strength. So what they do is they put a portion of that whiskey in those first fill Oloroso. Let's just imagine for the argument's sake that they had the 10% first fill bourbon and they put that 10% in first fill hogsheads Oloroso casks. Now, hogsheads are not used in the sherry industry, so that's a seasoned cask, which is just fine. Now, what is a heavily re-toasted, recharred American oak cask? Yeah, heavily charred cask. Now, Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia belong to the same company, and Loch Lomond has its own cooperage. I was supposed to go to the cooperage on my trip, but for some reason they canceled very short term, and instead I was able to go to Deanston and had a great time there. So I did not see the cooperage, unfortunately, but I do know at the cooperage what they do is they can actually scrape out an old hogshead and rejuvenate it by actually recharring that wood. So let's say, imagine a stave is between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch thick. So you can take off about even a 1/4 of an inch, even like an 1/8 of an inch, and get rid of all that char and re-char it. And that's what they do. So at Loch Lomond, they actually rejuvenate casks, shave them, rechar them. I don't know if it's an STR, I don't know if they toasted them or not, but then they send those rejuvenated, heavily charred casks over to Glen Scotia and they use them. So that's what this is. So this is not a double wood, it's not a triple wood, it's actually a quadruple wood whiskey. So what am I going to compare it to? If you've ever watched my videos before, you always know, and I can expect that I'm going to compare it to something. I'm going to compare it to a different Glen Scotia bottling that came out 2021 as well. And this is their beautiful, nice, interesting Campbelltown Malts Festival 2021 limited edition. This is only 10 years of age. It's unpeated. This is unpeated. This is 56.1. This is 54.7% ABV. And this received a Bordeaux red wine cask finish. So this is sold out, at least over in Germany and Europe. I don't know anywhere that you can buy this online. This is actually available online. So if you go to Whiskybase, you type in 190979, you can find 25 stores, at least in Germany. So let's go here. How many? 50 different stores in Europe where you can buy this whiskey without a problem. So it's still available. So there probably was many, many, many more of these of the 12-year-old seasonal release than that. They both basically cost 70 some euros at the beginning. So that wasn't the problem with the price. 10 versus 12. 4 different casks basically versus just 2 different casks. Now on the nose, this is beautiful. I get a wonderful vanilla pudding with red fruits on top of it. We're talking about the raspberries. We're talking about the currants. We're talking about those, maybe even some cranberries, some rich, tart, red fruits. And it's very, very nice. On the nose, on the other hand, on the 12-year-old seasonal, this is quintessential for me. Quintessential Glen Scotia. This has a tiny, tiny little bit of a, I'm going to say, strawberry rhubarb pie. I don't know how else to explain it. Some people explain it with honey and with oak. So if I go down here, one of my official tasting guides says here, sweet with caramelized fruit sugar, then apple with peach, and after a while the bourbon notes come on with a light saltiness. On the taste, it should be very, very mouth-filling. It should be creme brulee. There should be a little bit of cinnamon, which I never get. And there's actually some kitchen herbs in here as well. Then you have the dry fruit, the dry oak, and a little bit of almost a little bit of clove. Now, this is very good. I actually, the first time I noticed this today, I was like, oh, it's almost like a dingle. It's almost like a little bit of Hawaiian punch together with a cranberry type of raspberry moment going on here. I like this. And there's oak and there's honey and there's just a goodness here. And this is the way I imagine a great whiskey to be. Now, the first Oloroso is not at all overpowering. The 54.7% are not at all overpowering. This is actually a beautiful, beautiful whiskey that I can really, really recommend. On the nose, this beats it a little bit because of that vanilla pudding sweetness with that fruit moment. But the longer I smell, the more I do like this. This would be a B-. This is also a B-. All right, let's taste. Cheers. I don't know if you've ever had the Glen Scotia 10, just classic 10, 40%. Imagine that at cask strength with a little bit more of a fruitiness involved. This is good. This is really good. I like. If I put a little bit of water in here, it can carry a little bit of water. I'm diluting it down to like 50%. On the nose, I get a tiny, tiny little bit more of a leather moment. I do get a little bit more of those herbal moments. And this whiskey can stand up to water. I like. It doesn't have a funk to it. It has just a beautiful, beautiful taste. Even on the aftertaste, very nice. No bitterness, nothing going on there that shouldn't be going on. This is well crafted. Ian McAllister and your team, well done. Now, the distillery at Glen Scotia is not big. They have one pot still and one mash still. All right, they have a, So, Glen Scotia. They have one cast iron 2.8 ton mash tun. They have 9 washbacks, all made of stainless steel. Not a problem, easier to keep. And this is the most amazing part that they have here. They have an average fermentation time of 128 hours. Their shortest fermentation time is 70. Most of the distilleries in Scotland, their longest fermentation time is 70. So they have 70 hours. The longest here is 140 hours. That's a long time. So now they do have a little bit of a problem with their output. What I mean by problem, they had a problem with the amount of output. 2020 was a very difficult year for them. Instead of the standard 500,000 liters that they should put out, there were a lot of closures due to COVID and so on. There was only 220,000 liters. So Glen Scotia is going to actually have a problem in a few years having enough stock for this older stuff there. 2021, I think they got back almost up to speed. 2022, they should be at speed again. But still, 500,000 liters. They do have a theoretical capacity of 800,000. That would be running 24/7, which they don't. But 500,000 is a lot. They're doing 10 mashes a week. Yep. So we'll have to see. They do 8 weeks of medium peated with 23.5 ppm. They do heavily peated a few weeks as well with 54.5. But I actually just thoroughly enjoy, not the whiskey head, not the peat head WhiskyJason. I enjoy thoroughly their unpeated whiskeys. I just love them. This, on the other hand, is excellent on the nose, but not excellent on the taste. Why? The Bordeaux red wine casks are too tart. They're too much of a wood moment. There's just an astringency that really doesn't sit well with me. This is not sweet, but this tannin. There's astringency. This sucks all the moisture out of the cheekbones. I know many people who just love this whiskey. Now, if you love a great dry Bordeaux wine and you want to actually just carry that flavor profile over to your whiskey, which I don't. I do like a good dry Bordeaux red wine with a beef with brisket, with a beef roast. But in my whiskey, I prefer something I'm a little bit more on the sweet side. Doesn't have to be too sweet, but a tiny little bit, and that's this. This is wonderful. This is a B- on the taste, and it's a solid C for value for money. If you can find it for 70 euros and you like the Glen Scotia style, buy it. Now, over here in Germany, we actually have the possibility to have, I think, between 8 and 12 single casks a year. I've tried some of them. I bought some of them. I've shared some of them. I think what Glen Scotia is doing is great. I love the fact they have their own cooperage and they can do their own stuff at Loch Lomond. I think what Loch Lomond is doing is great. With their different yeast and with their different pot still variation and with their grains and everything that's going on there. But actually, I think Glen Scotia, at the end of the world, is how it sometimes feels, is actually doing almost as good, if not even better job of what they're doing with their main products. A little bit of a fanboy of Glen Scotia, at least unpeated whiskey. So my question of the day is, what is your favorite Glen Scotia? Is it the 15-year-old getting more and more expensive? Oh no. Is it the 10-year-old? Is it a special release? Is it a festival bottling? Is it a single cask? What did you have that you like from Glen Scotia? Please write it down in the chat. Like, subscribe, tell others. Maybe even share this video and show other people that there's more to Campbelltown than just the Springbank, the Glengyle, and with the Hazelburn and with the Longrow. I visited on one day basically the Glengyle Distillery, I visited the Springbank Distillery, and I visited the Glen Scotia Distillery. 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. And my favorite was the Glen Scotia. The tour guide was great, Ian McAllister, the distillery manager himself. I thoroughly enjoyed Glengyle. I just love how they set that up and everything that's going on there. Now, I liked Springbank, but I am not a Springbank fan. I don't like the Springbank funk. That's my personal problem. And I know many people love that. And I apparently don't know how to appreciate that Springbank magnificence. But to be very honest, my ranking of the distilleries in Campbelltown, Glen Scotia 1, followed by Glengoyne, followed by Springbank. Just lost some subscribers, who knows? That's what I experienced while I was there. My tour guides were good in both of those places, but my tour guide at the Glen Scotia Distillery was just this much better with his knowledge, excitement, and experience. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye. Don't forget, we love you out there, and we enjoy having some likes, subscriptions, and some comments. Bye-bye.